Studies Session 5, Liberalism. Introduction. In the previous study session, we examined the theory of realism in international relations, its principles and structural strands. In this study session, we will discuss meaning and contributions of scholars to the study of liberalism, and also the stance of liberalism. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this study session, you should be able to explain the term liberalism, analyze at least 4 strands of liberalism. Meaning and contributions of scholars to the study of liberalism. Liberalism is one of the key theories of international relations. It is derived from the writings of such European Enlightenment philosophers as John Locke, 1632 to 1704, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, 1712 to 1778, and Immanuel Kant, 1724 to 1804. It is often understood as the opposite of realism. This is because while realism is seen as a pessimist theory, liberalism is seen as an optimist theory. Unlike realists, liberals have a positive view of human nature. They believe in the power of human reason and also believe that rational principles can be applied to international relations. According to them, it is true that human beings are self-interested and competitive up to a point. However, they also share many interests in common, and cooperative social action is thus possible. Therefore, human beings can learn to cooperate to improve their lives. The prospect of economic, technological, and cultural benefits may give states reasons to cooperate with other states. To the liberals, conflict and war are not inevitable. This is because human reason can triumph over human fear and the lust for power. While liberals also acknowledge the central role of the states, they believe that states are not the only significant actors in the international system. They argue that bodies like the United Nations, UN, European Union, EU, etc. are actors such as multinational corporations, non-governmental organizations like Amnesty International, Greenpeace, etc. are as significant as the state in international relations. Liberals do not share the realist assumption that power is the means by which a state's security is guaranteed. They believe security can be guaranteed by other means. Also, like realists, liberals accept that anarchy. It is true that human beings are self-interested and competitive up to a point. However, they also share many interests in common, and cooperative social action is thus possible. Therefore, human beings can learn to cooperate to improve their lives. The prospect of economic, technological, and cultural benefits may give states reasons to cooperate with other states. To the liberals, conflict and war are not inevitable. This is because human reason can triumph over human fear and the lust for power. While liberals also acknowledge the central role of the states, they believe that states are not the only significant actors in the international system. They argue that bodies like the United Nations, UN, European Union, EU, etc. are actors such as multinational corporations, non-governmental organizations like Amnesty International, Greenpeace, etc. are as significant as the state in international relations. Liberals do not share the realist assumption that power is the means by which a state's security is guaranteed. They believe security can be guaranteed by other means. Also, like realists, liberals accept that anarchy is a fundamental condition of the international system. However, they are more optimistic than the realists about the opportunity for cooperation between states. Liberals believe that states are not the only significant actors in the international system. They argue that bodies like the United Nations, UN, European Union, EU, etc. are actors such as multinational corporations, non-governmental organizations like Amnesty International, Greenpeace, etc. are as significant in the state in international relations. Essentially, liberals believe international relations evolved through small changes over time. Liberals focus on the interdependence of the world's countries and the mutual benefits they can gain by cooperating with another. Unlike realists, liberals believe that by cooperating, all nations could win. They also think gaining actual wealth is more important than acquiring more power relative to other countries. Liberals tend to see war not as a natural tendency, but as a tragic mistake that can be prevented or at least minimized by international agreements and organizations. For better understanding of liberalism, Evans and Newham, 1998, summarized the 4 core beliefs of classic liberalism in international relations as including the following. 1. Peace can best be secured through the spread of democratic institutions on a worldwide basis. 2. A natural harmony of interest will ensure people and states make rational calculations which make national interest and international interest one and the same. 3. If disputes occur, they should be settled by established judicial procedures under the rule of law. 4. Collective security will replace notions of self-help. Liberals focus on the interdependence of the world's countries and the mutual benefits they can gain by cooperating with another. Unlike realists, liberals believe that by cooperating, all nations could win. They also think gaining actual wealth is more important than acquiring more power relative to other countries. Liberals tend to see war not as a natural tendency, but as a tragic mistake that can be prevented or at least minimized by international agreements and organizations. We can infer from the above, therefore, that liberalism is a theory that places much faith on the capacity of human beings to solve their problems without resorting to war. According to the liberals, the world is a harsh and dangerous place, but the consequences of using military power often outweigh the benefits. International cooperation, therefore, is in the interest of every state. To them, military power is not the only form of power. Economic and social power also matter a great deal. Exercising economic power has proven more effective than exercising military power. It is true that different states often have different primary interests. However, international rules and organizations can help foster cooperation, trust, and prosperity. Thus, liberalists believe that participation in international institutions, free trade, and economic interdependence, and shared democratic norms and ideas greatly increase the prospects of peace in the international arena. Basically, therefore, for realists, the state is a concentration of power. For liberals, the state is a constitutional organization where power is separated. The state establishes the rule of law and enforces it. It respects the rights of citizens to life, liberty, and property. Strands of liberalism. As we saw in the last study session, liberalism is a theory that has a positive view of human nature as against realism, which is regarded as pessimistic about human nature. Like all the other theories in international relations, liberalism has various strands or variants. These strands of liberalism have contributed to the study of international relations in various ways. For this study, let us examine 4 main strands of liberalism identified by Jackson and Sorensen, 2007. These are sociological liberalism, interdependence liberalism, institutional liberalism, and republican liberalism. Sociological liberalism. Unlike realists who see international relations as a study of relations between governments of sovereign states, the sociological liberals see international relations as involving not only state-to-state relations, but also about transnational relations. Transnational relations, according to Joseph Rosenon, 1980, are the processes whereby international relations conducted by governments have been supplemented by relations among private individuals, groups, and societies that can and do have important consequences for the course of events. In other words, emphasis is placed on society as well as the state, and on many different types of actors, not just national governments. This is why the theory is often referred to as pluralism. One of the leading figures in the study of transnational relations was Carl Deutsch, who argued that a high degree of transnational ties between societies leads to peaceful relations that amount to more than the mere absence of war. To him, what emerged is a security community, whereby people have come to agree that their conflicts and problems can be resolved without resorting to large-scale physical force. Deutsch listed a number of conditions that are conducive to the emergence of security communities. These include increased social communication, greater mobility of persons, stronger economic ties, and a wider range of mutual human transactions. Therefore, to Deutsch, an increasingly pluralist world characterized by transnational networks of individuals and groups will be more peaceful. In other words, sociological liberalism highlights transnational non-governmental ties between societies, such as communication between individuals and between groups. John Burton, 1972, for example, argued that transnational relations between people from different countries create new forms of society which exist alongside or in competition with the system of states. He claimed that all nation-states contain individuals and groups which share contacts and interests with external groups, such as religious groups, business groups, labor groups, etc. He pointed out that if we map the patterns of communication and transactions between various groups, we will get a more accurate picture of the world because it will represent actual patterns of human behavior rather than artificial boundaries of states. Sociological liberalism highlights transnational non-governmental ties between societies, such as communication between individuals and between groups. Interdependence liberalism. Interdependence means mutual dependence. That is, people and governments are affected by what happens elsewhere, by the actions of other people in other countries. Examples that can come to mind include terrorism, HIV and AIDS, environmental degradation, etc. In other words, a level of transnational relations between countries means a higher level of interdependence. Terrorism. The systematic use of terror, often violent, especially as a means of coercion in the international community. This also reflects the process of modernization. Since the 1950s, modernization has seen the emergence of several large industrialized countries. A number of liberals argue that states have changed their attitude to war in the past 50 years. Historically, states have used military force to achieve territorial expansion. In the past, wars had been winnable at comparatively low cost, and clear objectives have been met. However, highly industrialized states can now achieve power and prosperity more cheaply and with less risk through other methods, such as economic development and foreign trade. Modernization. The model of an evolutionary transition from a pre-modern or traditional to a modern society. Foreign trade. The exchange of capital goods and services across international borders. According to the interdependence liberalists, the cost of using force have increased and the benefits have declined. Trade is increasingly beneficial for states. This is because of the changing basis of modern economic production. Before, territory and resources was the key. Now, the most important things for success are a highly qualified labor force, access to information, and financial capital. We can summarize the assumptions of the interdependence liberals as follows. Modernization increases the level and scope of interdependence between states. Under complex interdependence, transnational actors are increasingly important. To them, military force is a less useful instrument, and welfare, rather than security, is becoming the primary goal and concern of states. That means a world of more cooperative international relations. Institutional liberalism. This strand of liberalism claims that international institutions can make cooperation among various actors in the international system easier and far more likely. International institutions, according to institutional liberals, are international organizations such as the United Nations, European Union, and the World Trade Organizations, etc. International institution can also be used to refer to a set of rules which govern state actions in particular areas. For example, aviation or shipping. These sets of rules are also called regimes. The institutional liberals argue that regimes facilitate cooperation by establishing standards of behavior, which signal to all other members that individual states are in fact cooperating. When all states expect the other participants to cooperate, the probability of sustaining cooperation increases dramatically. International institutions are also referred to as a set of rules which govern state action in particular areas, for example, aviation or shipping. These sets of rules are also called regimes. States enter into regimes because it is in their interest to do so. This is because the problem to be tackled is of a transnational nature and cannot be successfully addressed by states individually. For example, on the issue of trade and the establishment of the General Agreement of Trade and Tariffs, GATT, states agreed on the principle of liberalizing international trade in order to obtain economic benefits. They also agreed on fundamental norms about how international trade should function, on specific rules that they would abide by in the future, and on the decision-making procedures in the form of a series of meetings to review the progress of liberalization and the set of rules decided in the last round of talks. These were beneficial to most states in terms of reduced time and costs that would have been involved if states were to negotiate trade agreements on a bilateral basis with one another. This agreement was so successful that the states have now transformed it into World Trade Organization, WTO, thereby further formalizing the institution. International regimes, therefore, increase the probability of cooperation among states in the international system. The institutional liberals argue that regimes facilitate cooperation by establishing standards of behavior, which signal to all other members that individual states are in fact cooperating. In essence, the primary argument of the institutional liberals is that institutions, be they formal international organizations or other informal means, such as international treaties or traditions, are able to shape, influence, and constrain state behavior. The process and logic for such a proposition follows that states operating out of self-interest and rationality will tend to opt for the situations and opportunities that will maximize the benefits and gains for each particular state. Where international institutions enter this scenario is in institutions being the most effective mechanism for states to achieve such goals. International institutions can serve as a forum whereby states can discuss their disagreements such that they will be able to reinforce cooperation rather than competition. Thus, institutions help promote cooperation between states and thereby help alleviate the lack of trust between states. Furthermore, there are many cases in which institutions do matter. They can provide information, reduce transaction costs, make commitments credible, establish focal points for coordination, and in general facilitate the operation of reciprocity. Keown and Martin, 1994. Thus, contrary to realist belief, states can functionally make use of the existence and good function of institutions to improve the quality of information and optimize potential gains from cooperation. International institutions can serve as a forum whereby states can discuss their disagreements such that they will be able to reinforce cooperation rather than competition. Thus, institutions help promote cooperation between states and thereby help alleviate the lack of trust between states. Republican liberalism. This strand of liberalism is based on the claim that liberal democracies are more peaceful and law-abiding than other types of political systems. The Republican liberals argue that democracies do not frequently resort to war with each other. According to them, democracies encourage peaceful international relations because democratic governments are controlled by their citizens, who will not advocate or support wars with other democracies. This theory is often referred to as democratic peace theory. According to Michael Doyle, there are 3 reasons why democracies do not fight each other. These are: 1. Democracies have domestic political cultures based on the principle of peaceful conflict resolution. Democratic governments are controlled by their citizens, who will not support the idea of war with another democratic country. 2. Democracies hold common moral values, which lead to the formation of a Pacific Union or a zone of peace. This is based on the common moral foundations of all democracies. Peaceful conflict resolution at the domestic level is seen as morally superior, and this attitude is transferred to relations between democracies. Freedom of expression and free communication promote mutual understanding across political boundaries. 3. Peace between democracies is strengthened by economic cooperation and interdependence. The economies of countries in the zone of peace are complexly interdependent. Democracies encourage peaceful international relations because democratic governments are controlled by their citizens, who will not advocate or support wars with other democracies. In essence, because of democratic peace theory, liberals are optimistic about the long-term prospects for world peace. War is one of the most serious problems in the international system. However, the number of democracies in the world is increasing, and if democratic peace theory is correct, it means that the number and frequency of conflicts will also reduce. Theoretically, if all the countries in the world became democratic, then the threat of war would disappear. Republican liberalism has a strong normative or moral element. Republican liberals believe in progress towards peace and cooperation in international relations in the long run. They see it as their responsibility to promote peace. Study session summary. In this study session, We discussed liberalism. Liberalism is optimistic about human nature and sees the international arena as anarchical. Liberals, however, believe that states do cooperate and find solutions to international problems. We identified four strands of liberalism: sociological liberalism, interdependence liberalism, institutional liberalism, and republican liberalism. While interdependence liberalists de-emphasize military force and place emphasis on economic and institutional elements at the international level. In addition, institutional liberalism places emphasis on the importance of international institutions. Republican liberalism argues for liberal democracies so as to promote peace and cooperation at the international level. With this, we come to the end of study session 5. Thanks for listening.